All right then, so now let's have a look on input and output operations in C. So let's open our code blocks, and here I'm just going to delete everything. Okay, let me clean up the code. So basically in C, input and output operations are performed by using the standard input and output functions, which is provided by your stdio.h. All right, so which means, so we are going to use this package, this stdio.h header file, which is quietly we can understand that's the standard input and the output, right? So this functions provides us both input and the output functions. Let's talk about the output functions first. In the output functions, we do have this printf method and we have this putchar method, right? So basically printf method will help you to print anything in the console, and this putchar method will help you to print the character in the console, right? And let's talk about the scanf. So input functions. So in that, the input function, the first one which we are talking about is the scanf, and the second one is the getCan. Scanf, which helps you to read any specific data type by using its identifier and storing it in the address of your memory space, right? So that's the reason of having the scanf function. All right, so let's discuss each and everything one by one, and let's understand how to use these scanf and everything in much more better way. So basically scanf is used for formatted input from the standard input, right? So the syntax that you need to understand is like how you need to say here scanf, and you need to supply the formatted string. Then you need to supply your input variables, the place where you need to store your input variables. So think about it, how all these values are being stored in the memory space. So let's talk about every program. Whenever you're trying to run a program, it will be executed from your primary memory, which means your RAM. In the RAM, a special memory will be allocated for your specific program, which is called heap memory. Heap memory is nothing but a virtual memory which is allotted for that specific program, and it will be active until that program is active. If the program is closed or terminated, then the complete heap memory will be terminated by the RAM, right? So in that virtual memory, we have a memory address table, which carries these three different columns informations. One, that's the address, the place where the variable is being created, then the variable name, then the value. For instance, think about it, if I'm creating a variable called age, so it will keeps it somewhere in the random address, something like this, right? And the variable name is going to be age, and the value which I assigned for it is 20. So think about if I'm creating a variable called int age equals to 20, which carries the default value as 20. So that variable will be stored randomly by your compiler in your memory address, and it assigned with a variable name as age, and for that variable we are assigning a value 20. So whenever I call the variable age, it will goes to this as a memory table, and it will try to figure out that variable name, and it will try to find out its address. Then it will take the value from that specific memory address. So this is what happening every time whenever you are creating a variable. All right, so now let's see how to use this specific this scanf function. As I said, we need to supply the formatted string, which means you need to supply the data identifier. In the previous class itself, we talked about each and every data type has its own identifier. Like for int, we should supply %d, and for character we need to supply %c, and for float %f, and so on. So we need to supply those identifiers as your formatted strings into your scanf function. So let's write a program. So as we need to start with hash include stdio.h, which is more than enough. Then I need to start the int main function, open it. So since it's an int, which means a function return type is an int, so we need to finish it with a return. So either you can return a specific output, or you can simply return it as a 0, because we are not willing to return anything. So I'm returning this simply as a 0, because since 0 is also a number. So here I'm going to create the variables. So since, as I said, we have the static and the dynamic values, right? So I'm going to create two different values. Int a equals to 5. By the time of creating itself, I'm going to assign a value. Then I'm going to create a value for b, and I'm going to create one more value called c, right? So here I'm going to say printf, or we can simply supply scanf, then identifier, let's say %d. So what is the variable b data type? It's int. So you need to supply the identifier as %d. Then I need to store the value. I need to store the value on the address of that variable. So I need to target the address, not the variable. So that's the reason we are using the ampersand and the variable name. So that will collect the value and put it in the address of that specific variable. So this is how you need to use your scanf function. Then I'm just going to write a logic c equals to a plus b. Then I'm just going to print the answer. So answer colon. So right after here, I need to display the answer which I stored in the variable c. So %d. C is the integer data type. So I need to use %c, comma. So what value I need to display? So I need to display the value from the variable c. So I need to supply the c. This is how you need to format your printf function, right? Save these changes and let's run this program. And now it's simply waiting, right? It's simply waiting as a blank screen. For you, it's just a blank screen. The reason is because now the scanf is being, the main function is being triggered, and these variables are being created, and now it's waiting at this point, which means I need to supply an input, but the user doesn't know what he wants to do. So that's the reason every time before you're executing the scanf, you need to write an attractive statement that what you are trying to read a value from the user, right? So over here, now what I need to do, I need to supply a value. So I'm supplying 5. So the answer will be returned as 10. The reason is because the value of a is 5 and the value of b which I given is 5. So the answer is going to be 10. So before reading a value from the user, so I need to supply an attractive statement. Let's say enter the value of b, something like this. Now I need to terminate this line using the semicolon. Let me stop this and rerun the program. And now it's asking me enter the value for b, and the scanf is waiting to collect the input. Now if I supply the input, and you can see the answer which we got is answer is 10, right? So this is how you need to read an input from the user. All right. So now let's take it to the advanced level. Let's discuss with some interesting program, right? So let's try to calculate the student mark sheet, right? Let's try to calculate the student mark sheet by reading the roll number and the 5 different subject marks and calculating the total and average and displaying it everything. So just like the same way, what you have to do is, let me close all these things, right? Okay. All right, then. So now what we have to do is we have to create the variables, the necessary variables. So I'm going to keep the roll number as an integer. So int roll number colon, and I'm going to create float m1, m2, m3, m4, and m5 semicolon. And we need to calculate the total as well as, right? So I'm going to say total, which equals to 0 initially, then average, right? So these are the stuffs that we have to create. So the reason why I kept it in the float, because sometimes the mark can be 30.5 or 40.5, something like that, right? So now I need to read the roll number. So printf type student roll number colon. Then we need to read the input from the user scanf. It's an integer data type, so %d, and we need to store it in the address. So don't forget the ampersand symbol. Then you need to supply the variable name, semicolon, right? Now I need to read all these subjects. So let me show you how to read all these subjects in a single line. So since we haven't discussed about the arrays and all those things, so we need to create 5 different variables to read the subjects. If we already discussed about the arrays and all those things, we don't need these 5 different variables to read 5 different values from the user. We can create an array and we can reuse the same variable to store 5 different values in a single variable, right? So just for the time being, we created 5 different values or 5 different variables over here. So now I just have to say printf enter the subjects marks So we need to enter the subject marks, and we need to delimit all those subject marks just by using an empty space. Okay, so then I need to supply the scanf percentage D subject number 1, percentage D subject number 2, percentage D subject number 3, percentage D subject number 4, percentage D subject number 5. Then supply all those values M1, comma, M2, comma, M3, comma, M4, comma, and M5. At last, semicolon. Right? So now this is how you need to read all the 5 subjects marks in a single line. Now I need to calculate the total. So total equals to M1 plus M2 plus M3 plus M4 plus M5. Then we do need to calculate the average equals to total. Since we already calculated the total, we have to divide the total by total number of subjects, which is quite 5. Right? Now I need to print all those things. So we can print it in a single line just by using the line break option. Right? So we need to use the escape sequence. So basically whatever you're typing with this slash n, right? So if you're using this slash, you need to use the forward slash like this. So the forward slash is the escape sequence. Whatever the letter which comes after that slash will be escaped from that particular sequence. So slash n, basically that means new line. Whatever which comes after the slash n will always push back to the next line, because that will break that line and will push it into the new line. Right? So here I'm going to type the roll number. So I need the roll number over here. So percentage D. Then I need the slash n space. I need to type the total. I need to get the total. So basically the total is the float value. So you need to supply percentage F. Then I need to type slash n. I need to get the average. So here I'm just going to use the percentage F. Then I need to supply all those respective values one after another. Roll number for the first percentage D, and the total for the second percentage F, and the average for the third percentage F, right? Semicolon. Then at last you need to write the return 0. So don't forget to write the return 0. Now if I run this program, it's saying that we do have an error. Okay, instead of typing comma, I just terminated it. That's my mistake, right? So you can see we got the error. What is the error that we got? So we got the error as error average is undeclared. First use it in this function, because it doesn't know what the purpose of this avg means, because it doesn't, we mislead the syntax, right? We can say I incorrectly defined this variable. So I need to define it as a float. So instead of comma, I put the semicolon over there. So the reason is because it's terminated at this point. It doesn't know what to do with this average. So we changed it. Then now run this program. Now it's asking the student roll number. So let me type 1001, enter. Now it's asking 5 different subjects marks. So 50, 50, 50, 50, 50. Hit the enter. And now you can see we are getting the value as 0, 0. That is not possible. Did we made any mistakes? I hope I made a mistake on supplying the values. I think so. Nope. Then what might be the issue? We passed all those values perfectly. What might be the issue? So it's my bad. It is supposed to be a float value, not the integer value. So this is supposed to be percentage F, percentage F, percentage F, percentage F, and percentage F. Right. So now if you run this 1001 subjects 50, 50, 50 for 5 subjects marks, and hit the enter, and now you can see the total and the average. As I said, the float value by default, it will supplies you the 6 decimal units after the dot. So how to customize the decimal units after the dot? So to do that, all you have to do is to type percentage dot to f, which means after the dot, I need 2 float values. So dot to f, saves changes. And now if you rerun it and supply the roll number and supply the subject's marks and hit the enter, now here we go. You can see now we have 2 decimal units after the dot. So this is how you need to use your input and output functions to read and to manipulate the values by using those variables in C. So this is how you need to use the printf functions to print multiple values and use the scanf functions to read the multiple values in a single line, right? So I hope you understand the input and output operation, because this is the most important thing that you need to understand in C programming, right? So next, let's move on to the next concept.